two meetings tonight. The first one is the Cunningham Town Board Budget Committee, and that will be followed by the Committee of the Whole for the Urbana City Council. This is a special meeting of the Cunningham Town Board. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Sammons.
Present.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Jacobson.
Here.
Mr. Madigan.
Here.
Ms. Marlin.
Here.
Mr. Roberts.
Here.
Mr. Smythe.
Here.
Mayor Pressing.
Here. Are there any, the first item is petitions and communications. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the Cunningham Town Board? Guess we don't have anybody. Okay, then we have the next item, designation of final amended budget for fiscal 2013-2014, and this was sent from the board meeting of June 3rd. So anybody want to comment on that? Is there a motion?
Yeah.
Dennis?
Yeah, I'd like to amend the budget to keep the all the salaries mentioned in the budget for the assessor's office to be flat this year, as no % rise.
That's for the employees?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second to that? Okay, second by Smythe. Mr. Grosser?
The Township Board does not have the authority to do that.
Oh, would you like to,
Can you
if
enumerate?
they're supposed to vote on the budget, but they can't amend it?
You cannot set the salaries in the assessor's office. You are expressly barred from setting salaries in the office of the assessor or the office of the supervisor. You can determine the budget, you can determine the amounts, you could increase it, you could decrease it, but you cannot tell the assessor what the salaries are to be.
Oh, they can just have control over the total of the budget, but not the line items?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Or every other line item except for the salaries? Is that what you're saying?
I'd like to have clarification.
in the various categories, you can determine the amount. For example, you could say how much you're going to authorize for salaries,
Okay.
but you can't say how much each person is going to be paid or whether there can be an increase or a decrease.
Okay, I don't think that was the motion. The motion was to keep the total the same,
The total
correct?
the same, no change from previous year.
Okay. Is that the understanding of the second?
Yes, that the second states either that that's my understanding or that's a friendly amendment, whichever.
Oh, Charlie
Is it-
was the seconder, okay.
Yeah.
Charlie was the seconder anyway. Yeah.
So is that your understanding, Charlie?
My understanding that
We're just talking about.
it's my understanding that we're trying to come up with a flat budget that meets the cuts that plus we need to cut in other places as well. So yeah, so this is one place where it should be flat.
Is that
That's acceptable.
is that what you would think is legal?
To
Keep the
Keep
line item the same?
the
And
line
it-
item for salaries,
Right.
you can do anything you want with the line item for salaries, keeping it the same, raising it, lowering it,
Okay.
but you can't go into any detail. on
Okay.
it.
I think that's clear then.
And my intent was that that the amount of change would be 0.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Sammons.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson.
Yes.
Mr. Madigan.
Yes.
Ms. Marlin.
Yes.
Mr. Roberts.
Yes.
Mr. Smythe.
That motion carries. Is there anything else for the budget?
Yeah, actually,
Charlie?
Michelle, we're still about $25,000 more than we've got, right? So we need another $25,000 in cuts here, and so Mr. Stebbins has provided a list here, but I don't understand what this means. If he could address it, I'd appreciate it.
First, I want to say I talked to John, who is our certified independent auditor. He can help me try to come up with areas where I could cut. He could say what I was able to cut and what I wasn't able to cut, or ways to work around it. He also said that if we have a surplus, he says we are advised we can use our surplus in lieu of making cuts. And this is kind of a snapshot of, for 2013, how much the overall savings that my office from my budget was last year, how much I was able to cut. Some of that was I didn't have personnel, somebody in my office for part of the time. That makes up for some of my savings. And then for each year, the total amount that I did not spend in my budget for the last 3 years. And then the budget history kind of shows what the history of what the budget has been approved for in the last 5 years. And I'd kind of like to point out that in 5 years, it's increased, less than $9,000 for the total amount of budget that was approved over the last 5 years.
Okay, Charlie?
Okay, so you think you have, I think, so this year and given that the surpluses roll in and what's left over this year doesn't add up with what was left over last year, I mean, if you have $25,000 savings this year, that's it. I mean, you can't take the 25 and add it to the 37 because I assume it's been spent, right? We don't have, so is there a $25,000 savings at this point that a surplus in the assessor's budget that we can tap
We have a surplus in town fund
in town fund?
and in GA.
Okay.
I mean, that's really how the budget is split up until you get to this part of it where you're actually doing line items and amounts. So there is a surplus that would cover that $25,000 deficit.
Carol?
I just have two questions. One is, I don't understand the cut then in social service funding. And two, there's facilities repairs that was presented by Carol Elliott before she finished her term that needed to be done on the building. And so I'm wondering how that's going to be addressed.
What Carol said was the building's in need of paint and carpet on the inside. That is it.
I thought she said roof too.
We had a roof done within the last 10 years. I looked it up.
Okay.
So painting and carpets maintenance, I've been there 17 years. The carpet's been replaced once. We have wheelchairs, people with walkers, canes that, ding the doorways and trim and stuff that could use. It's never been painted since I've been there. Anybody else, I don't know. But maintenance-wise, no big mechanical issues. The roof's not falling in. General maintenance of painting and carpeting is what it needs. And that line item in that budget has been $15,000 to $20,000 because that is where we pay back the city of Urbana for the Build Urbana program. That's not all maintenance.
And can you answer the second question about the cut in the social service funding if we have a surplus?
Social service, we are not required by law to do, from what I understand. So when I have to cut $133,000, I cut where I can and where we are not required to spend the taxpayer money. We want to help, and that's why I lowered it instead of completely getting rid of it. But I had to cut $65,000 out of general assistance, and then I cut my $33,000 out of social service because there's not a lot of money in town fund besides social service is one of our big line items, and building maintenance, but that pays back the Build Urbana program. There's just no money.
Okay, who had another question? Oh, Mike Madigan.
Could you please tell me a little bit about the medical?
Our clients, our side is a welfare office. Our clients get a monthly grant and a medical card. That medical card, they can go to Carl, which now the Carl bills fall under the community care program, so that has saved us money. Okay. We pay dental, We pay for very few dental items, emergency.
So I guess my question is, the folks who are getting the medical benefit, is that in addition to the monthly payment?
Yes, if
Okay.
you qualify for $1, you get a medical card.
Okay. And so with that medical card, are those expenses that the township is incurring that otherwise would be charity care from Carl?
We don't pay Carl anything anymore since they are completely charity care. All of our clients are written off to charity care, but you still have Francis Nelson, Christie, Provena, all of the drugs, and that is where our big expense is in drugs for our clients.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Got a question? Charlie? Oh, Dennis, sorry.
My now, you did just mention that you're paying back the Build Urbana program, that there's a certain amount that has to be paid back. Now, we've discontinued that program this year, so, or maybe even last year, I can't remember. So is there, how does that figure in if we're not actually doing that anymore? Is there still, do you still have past due claims against your department?
Past due claims from,
Well, you say you're paying back the Build Urbana program? Can you
well, when
explain
was the
that?
last time we were billed for it? Was probably last fiscal year, right?
I
Does
think
anybody know?
Tom Carino could answer some here. Tom?
Sure. That program was discontinued, and so there are no new entrants into the program, but it was a 5-year rebate. So homes that pulled a permit before December 1st, 2012 are in the program, and so I would expect that there would be about 5 more years of Build Urbana payments.
Thanks, that answers my question.
So we need a motion?
I just have a question.
Oh, Carol has a question.
I have a question. Are we being asked to pass a deficit budget is what I'm asking. If you're saying that there's no additional areas that you can cut or that you can see to cut to balance this budget, are you asking the council to pass a deficit budget?
That is what was turned in as the final budget, so yes.
I would not be in support of passing a deficit budget. I think that there needs to be some additional reevaluation. I'm new to the council, but if we cut the actual services to the clients and the township is designed specifically for the clients, then I think we can certainly find ways to cut the extra $25,000. And I would actually, procedurally, when does this budget actually have to be approved? Mayor?
I will ask the supervisor.
90 days after the first of the fiscal year.
And your fiscal year
July
starts?
1st.
July 1st?
Yep.
So it does not have to be done tonight?
No,
But when you talk about a deficit budget, you're talking about using some of your reserves
correct,
to keep your services going.
right. We have a surplus,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, Eric?
So just so that we understand, you're going to go into your reserves so that you're going to spend more than you're going to be allocated in your budget, but at the end of the fiscal year, you expect there still to be reserves, but a smaller number. Is that correct?
That's correct. And you also have to keep in mind there's $493,000 in Carl money that we are holding that shows up as an expenditure. So when that is decided, hopefully before the next fiscal year, that will turn into revenue instead of an expenditure. So the deficit budget that you are referring to is including the Carl money that we've been holding, and that's been that ongoing case since 2004, I believe. So
the reason that you have a deficit is because of Carl not wanting to pay their taxes, correct? Just want to be clear.
pretty much.
Okay.
And because I've done some good accounting in the last 17 years.
Okay.
So I'll recommend actually that the Cunningham Township Board approves the budget as submitted by the Township Supervisor and move it to the City Council.
As amended,
As
correct?
as amended, thank you. That's the motion.
Is there a second to them? And seconded by Marlin. Any other discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
That motion carries. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.